Hello and welcome to a buildingSMART webinar. This webinar is part of the buildingSMART Virtual Summit for Spring 22. Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Proctor and I will be your moderator. Details of today's webinar are on the screen. This is the first session from the product room. I'm pleased to say that we have Alexandra Studer and Philipp Thomann, who will be presenting today. They represent D1 and are working closely with CRB on data modeling. This webinar is scheduled to last for an hour and we'll have a short question and answer session at the end. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event within the next 24 hours. Before I hand over to the speakers, I'd like to remind you that your phone lines will remain muted for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions or wish to make comments, please use the comments box in the control panel on the right-hand side of the screen. So I'll remind you as we go through, but any questions or comments, please add them to the comments box. I'd also like to bring to your attention the information that is on the screen now. buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent, and that standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider but are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. Now I'm going to hand over to Alexandra and Philipp. We'll bring up your slides, Alexandra.
So yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction and for this opportunity to be able to present to you this work in progress of a new data model that will unify all the data models for different phases in the building life cycle, at least in Switzerland. So this is the target we're heading for. I will start giving you a small introduction about who we are, who CRB is, and the motivation for this new data model. Then Alexandra will talk to you about more the details of this the state that we are now in. And finally, I will show you a little bit in a small tool that we built, the data model viewer, the first ideas that we have there. Also during the introduction phase, we will ask of you some questions in a tool called AHA Slides, if you're willing to participate so that we can get to know you better. We will get there quickly. So behind this effort is a whole project team, obviously. Mostly people from CRB, and most of them are, I think, here in the audience today, and might in the end also help us answer your questions in the discussion. So Tanja Knuser, Bärbel Buchholz, Michael Neyedli, Roman Hollenstein, Dan Rötlisberger, and Elvis Owusu. I think Tanya, Roman, and Dan, I saw there is also Marcel Hoher in here, and I think Michel Boren, the CEO of CRB, is also in the audience, if I'm not mistaken. Good. From our side, D1, so Fabian cannot be here today, unfortunately, but Alexandra is a data analytics consultant. She has a background in mechanical engineering and joined D1 around 5 years ago. I myself joined around the same time. I hold a PhD in mathematics and have been doing research in machine learning before joining D1. Good. So who is CRB? CRB is a non-profit that is one of the main standardizing bodies for the construction industry in Switzerland. They develop catalogs for different phases in the construction process, for instance, in the planning phase, and as well in the offer between contractors. They also help certifying software that is deployed in Switzerland or that is adapted for the Swiss market in this setting. They've been around a long time, since 60 years. And in Switzerland, if you're working in the industry, in the construction industry, then probably you have heard about CRB or using these catalogs on a daily basis. We from D1 are medium-sized consulting company with around 100 data professionals, focused on all the aspects of bringing data and making value out of data, starting with data architecture, then data experience, visualizations and dashboards, for instance, until even data science, machine learning, AI. So that's a little bit about us. Next, I want to give you a motivation why the CRB wants to set up a new data model. So there are these existing standards right now. For instance, for the planning phase, we have in the civil engineering part, the Tiefbau, as well in the building construction part, in the Hochbau, we have these EBKP standards that are organized hierarchically with codes that are used everywhere. Then in the actual construction phase, there is this NPK again, one of the most important utilities maybe used in Switzerland, going back 60 years and counting. These are really made the Swiss landscape very interesting and very productive to work in this with all of these catalogs. But for the next 60 years, we need something else. We need a new way to think about all of these different items, and we do this with this data model, which now will be more able to not only live on paper like the standard catalogs had to be, at least for decades, the decades that have been around, but in the digital age, we can now do much more things. You see already here a little bit of a glimpse of that. Alexandra will show you much more. The idea behind that is that we abstract some of the parts that have been before around and give them a new framework. So it starts with a component type in the beginning, which corresponds to different cost groups maybe. Then we have a composite because it's composed of individual items. So a composite might be something like a concrete wall that you want to have. And this then is composed by different standard items, or Bauposition, we call it in German, in this data model. That could be, for instance, the material, the concrete for the concrete wall. It can be the equipment, that's the form work you need during the actual construction, or it might be services like cleaning the wall and things like that. Now, this will help us to link it much better to all the things that are used right now in the industry, like in CAD models. For instance, the composites might be linked as to an IFC wall in order to then have better interaction between all these things. These CAD models then obviously will be used in projects and in construction administration software, things like that. So this is just a first glimpse now. Alexandra will show you much more. But now, before we go ahead, we would like to quickly ask you if you're willing to scan this QR code. It will bring you to a small interface. You can enter your name if you want to, and then it will immediately start when we have it on the next slide. It will ask you some questions. So I hope most of you have had the chance of getting there if you want to.
Maybe just leave it on the screen a moment longer, Philip.
Good.
As Philip said, if anyone wishes to take part in the next interactive part of the presentation, then please use your QR scanner on your mobile to scan the code.
So on iPhones, since 1 or 2 years, you can just use the standard camera app to scan it. And it will show you a link where you can tap on it. I think on Android you can go with the Google search, or you might have a specialized QR code scanning app. So
yeah, it's worked for me. Just to let you know, Philip.
good.
Just using the camera on an iPhone. Yep.
Okay. Cool. Good. Yeah, we now get some likes and stuff. Good. So should we continue now?
Yes, why not?
Good. So first of all, who are you? We would like to know. So you should now in this app see like this question, and you can answer: are you a cost planner, contractor? Yeah, whatever it fits the best for you. Do we have some results yet? Okay. Good. So yeah, a couple of developers, couple of work specification creators, the representatives of an association, probably with the link to CRB, and one contractor. Okay, so maybe the next question then. The size of your company. Okay, not so small companies in the end. Okay, interesting. Alexandra, do you know when to go forward? So yes, good. Yeah, where are you based, maybe, or where are your main work would be interesting to see. So obviously we are focused on Switzerland, and maybe right now the German-speaking part. Actually, CRB is also working in obviously in the French and Italian-speaking parts and the Retro-Romanian. So a little bit, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense. Good. Then here's now a question where you can type something in. So what are the biggest hurdles in the digital planning and construction process today? What do you think? What should be better? So you can just maybe answer with 1 or 2 words if you want to. Give you a little bit more time. Okay. Good. The standards in both now these seem to be something that would help a lot. Compatibility between softwares, yeah, we have seen that as well. That's a kind of a problem. lack of standardization. I hope that's more outside of Switzerland a little bit. So, but yeah. Okay. And then final question, how much do you affinity do you have for digital topics? Both you yourself, maybe as an individual, as well as your company. Okay, individuals are more digital than their companies. Okay, there are some digital. Some digital natives, even in the companies. That's very cool. Good. Yeah. So I mean, it's clear that every company now is a data company, maybe, or a digital company. There's one company that's not good. Interesting. That's kind of. I mean, we are here not a fair sample, maybe, of the whole construction industry, but still, that's very interesting to see. Good. Okay, then I hand over to you, Alexandra, now to talk about more about the details.
Yes, thank you, Philipp. So I am going to talk about a use case that we have visualized with mockups. So our data model is supposed to support the entire life cycle of a building, but because we are in a very early stage, we focused on three specific use cases. The first one is the approximate cost estimate, the second one, the detailed cost estimate, and the third one, the work specification. And now I'm going to show you this with some mock-up slides. So this could be in a CAD software, it could be in any kind of other software. So CRB itself is not selling any software, we want to sell the standards. But to visualize how the process could look like, we have just came up with this example here. So when we are in the approximate cost estimate phase, all we have is a volumetric model of our building. And the idea is then to load this IFC model into a software or work directly in the CAD software. And then the CRB gives the standards for the measurement units, and the quantities get automatically extracted. And what CRB also provides is the cost rate, which is linked to our website, where we collect data of many different projects within Switzerland currently. And here you can basically take the cost rates from already finished building, which is in a similar area, similar standards, and so on. And with that, we have a cost estimate. This can then be exported in whichever format you want. And we're also thinking of creating a new format that helps the exchange of this data. Then we are already in the next phase. What would happen in between is actually the estimate. We skipped that because we wanted to focus on the other phases. But now we are in the detailed cost estimate phase. And here, what we have is actually already a pretty good idea of how our building should look like. And we have all the walls specified. We know what type of wall they are, and so on. And what we then do is that we want to connect the IFC wall with our CRB composites that we have made available with our data model. And of course, we could do this for multiple walls of the same type at the same time, but for simplicity, we just select one wall here. So let's say we have selected the composite. What then should happen is that all the relevant and only the relevant information pops up here. And what we need to know at this stage of the planning phase, at the detailed cost estimate phase, is, for example, if the wall is external, the length, height, width, and so on, material, reinforcement ratio, formwork type, and so on. And if possible, this gets already extracted from the IFC model, but it's also possible for the planner to overwrite manually or to create new rules. This is a bit simplified here. I know this is not the exact right terminology for all of you IFC experts there who now have smoking heads because of this. It's more of a help to understand how this should work. And with that, we can again assign a cost rate, and then we know how much, we know have the detailed cost estimate. Maybe one last thing that I should here mention is that we also have the trade as a default for each of the composites. We have kind of a default trade assigned, but we could also change this. And since it is a composite, there might also be multiple trades working on it at this stage. And then we can also add more user-defined labels for whatever classification or annotation that we might want to have in our data. And once we have this all specified, we can extract the report of the detailed cost estimate, which you see here. And what's the beauty of this new continuous data model, which has all the data in one place, is that we can now also compare against our approximate cost estimate that we had made earlier on. And here we see now that the cost is actually 14% higher now in our detailed cost estimate than it was in the estimate, in the approximate cost estimate. And then we also see why, because we see, we have actually planned more walls now than we initially thought we would have. And then we also see that the cost rate is now actually higher than what we thought in the earlier phase. And yeah, with that we have, we can also recalculate for our next project a better cost rate to get a better estimation next time. What we also see here is that we can filter for whatever we want, for the labels, for the walls, for the trades, whatever is of interest for us. And now let's go to the last phase that we wanted to focus on, which is the work specification. And this is usually where currently kind of a heartbreak happens, because the information is not flowing from the planner to then the one who does the work specification automatically. So, but here in our data model, we have these composites which already hold a lot of information about the work that's associated with these composites. And as you see here, we suggest that for this type of composite, we usually have these works and equipments and materials coming with it. And then we let the user select. Some of the works can't be deselected because they are always included, because that's also norms in Switzerland that these works are coming with somebody who brings formwork, for example, then they should also set it up and dismantle it or whatever. But others you might be able to deselect, and some might even be kind of, for example, in this reinforcement, you could say you need either a bar or a mesh, or if you do not have any of that, you will see a warning. Okay, and now we select what we need, and then let's say we click here on the Add button and have all the works now assigned to the wall. We can now open up the equipment and we see all the details. And here, of course, we again have a lot of information which needs to be specified for a detailed work specification. What we have as a help is these tabs up here, which is, we call them archetypes. So these are kind of commonly used parameter and commonly used pairs of parameters, let's say. So for example, we have these double-sided type 2 standard formwork that we often use, and then here we have all the parameters already specified. We can also create a new user-defined archetype, which has completely different combinations of parameters here. And our ambition is also to include all the information that's out there somewhere into our data model. So for example, for this concrete surface class here, if you click on the info button, you will also see the information that's coming from the Swiss Concrete Association. There's something like that here. And they have a lot of nice pictures also explaining what exactly these concrete surface classes are. And with that, we have it all in one place, and we don't want to make or we still want the person who fills this out to have a lot of domain knowledge, obviously, but we want to support them as much as we can. So let's say we now specify.
Just one comment maybe quickly. So actually these archetypes that Alexandra mentioned are a little bit the fruit of the very detailed catalog that that CRB has right now. This NPK really goes into all the combinations that should usually be used within Switzerland, let's say. People can also pivot away from that, but in order to capture that, this feature of that we have now, we will use these archetypes.
Exactly, yes. Then let's say we have now all the works specified, and then we can create the work specification, which then can be given to the contractor to fill in his price that he usually has for these types of work. Good. And then again, we want to highlight now the continuity that we have in our model, because now we have actually an offer, and with the offer we basically call revised detailed cost estimate, because it's not already paid, it's still a cost estimate, but it's now very detailed. So we have this here. And then on the other hand, we have all the cost estimates that we have done in the earlier phases. And then we can again compare. We can see what has changed in the model, and we can calculate back what would have been a better cost rate actually in our initial phase. And this helps, of course, a lot then in our next project to make a better estimate from the very beginning.
One detail from the chat. I'm not sure whether the comments get out to the audience. Michel Boren just said that or wrote that there will be on Thursday during this summit a presentation about the Werkmaterial Online, which is this reference project database. I think that it's meant for the part of the concrete, so which parts of can be used like that, and also which these per item costs, how they are organized within Switzerland.
Yeah, it's a cool new product. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, yeah, thanks, Philip. I think it's good to advertise what we're doing on Thursday. Thank you. Please do carry on, Alexandra.
Good. Then we are already done with this part. I have one more thing to show you to illustrate a bit more, maybe the structure of the data. So we have sorry, this is not translated. I had to translate all of our information, which was actually kind of hard to find out all these correct English terms for these very specific topics. But this one, yeah, I have not translated, but I think you will be able to follow anyways. So this is some example objects that we have picked, for example, the concrete wall and then a pump and then a gas pipe, where we visually displayed the structure of the new data model that we think makes sense. What I think is interesting to mention is that, this looks not so nice, yeah, is the difference between the catalog and the instance. So what CRB is going to provide is a catalog item. For example, here this reinforcement mat, which has some archetypes which you can choose from, and it has all the parameters which are necessary to specify this item. And we have this displayed in this mirror board, kind of in this pale color, and to show you that this would be in the catalog, but it's not an instance. And then we have the instance, which means this item is actually used in a project. And then we add an instance name to the item, and then we pick an archetype, or we choose the free archetype. And this means that then all the parameters are actually specified. So this is now how it looks like as it's used in a project. And then another thing which conceptually I wanted to mention is the labels, where you can assign a trade or a package, for example, whatever you want. And for the concrete wall, this looks like this. We start in the first phase, and there we have just one item for the construction with very little information here given, because we just don't know more at the moment. Then in the next phase, we have the wall construction, or let's say we have the construction actually split into fundaments and wall construction and pillars and so on. And still not so many information, but again, cost, rate, and an area. And then in the next phase, we distinguish between the interior walls and the exterior walls. And then we actually arrive at these composites, which is one item per IFC wall, actually. And here, down here, you now see the catalog, like in the pale color, of what would have been possible to choose. And in the bright colors here, you see what has actually been chosen. And this is the structure of the data model that we envision. And down here also to mention is we have all the norms also inside this composite collected together. Yes, and with that, I have some more questions for you. By the way, sometimes it helps to refresh the URL if you are stuck on your mobile phone in the AHA slides.
Did you want to give people the QR code again, Alexandra, just in case?
Yes. For those who haven't or still want to join, still possible, you can scan this QR code, or you can also join via browser with this link here.
Thank you.
All right, good. Okay, it seems like it's mostly clear. I'm happy about that. Thank you. The next question is, if you see that this continuous data model adds value, and the continuity we distinguish in two dimensions. One is the continuity from cost estimation to the offer along all phases, and the other element is from elements to trade. All of that is also now captured in one model. Okay, so we see cost estimation to offer. We actually have very polarized opinions. Some see a lot of value in that, and some don't see any value in that. Maybe in the discussion we could hear some words about from the person who thinks this adds no value at all. That would be very interesting. And then from elements to trade, yeah, we have some in the middle and some who see there is value in that. Okay. Do you think this concept could simplify your work process? Okay, and this is 5, so some people went for the middle, somebody again for 1, so does not simplify his or her work processes, maybe even makes them more complicated. I don't know. I would also be interesting to hear about the reasoning for that. And then we have quite some people who think that's a useful concept to simplify their work. Then here, this is an open question. If you have some remarks for us or for a next touch point, what do you think is kind of missing from the picture? Where would you like to get more information? How to maintain back-end data, application in all market sectors. Oh, that's interesting. Can we already ask for comments here at this point, or should we move that to the Q&A session?
We can't speak to people, Alexandra, but if people wish to elaborate on the comments that they're raising through the software, they can add any questions or comments into the comment section. Okay. Down the right-hand side. There's a few come in while you've been presenting, but if anyone has any more, please add them into the comments now, and we can have a fuller discussion when the presentation's finished. All right.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much for the input. Sounds very interesting. For some of these points, I would like to get a bit more information, maybe. But yeah, let's see what we can talk about in the Q&A session. And first, we have the last point on our agenda, which is presenting you one first actual functioning tool to explore our data structure. This is the data model viewer, and Philipp is going to present that to you now.
Yes, thanks. Can you switch to my screen?
Yeah, let me do so, Philipp. Yeah. Can't see your screen actually at the moment. Oh, yes, I do. Here it is. Sorry.
Good. Perfect. Yes, so what Alexandra showed you in this before the Miro board with this mock-up of of a tool. That tool there would have been or will be used for, or is an idea how it would be used in a daily business. Here now we show you the possibility of a catalog. So back in the day when everything needed to go onto paper, that had some problems, but now in the digital age we can show the catalog of all the possibilities in this data model in a much better version. And this is now a first iteration of that with a couple of implemented elements already in composites. So what you see here is basically this catalog in the background. So there was already a question about the back end. Here it's basically a JSON document database that helps with these things. It's not yet finished how it will be, so we are currently in the process of making a roadmap when people can see a first API. But here we have this version. The Miro board that Alexandra just showed is basically like is a flattened version of this interactive UI here. You see, it's now organized with these phases that we have shown to you before. You see for each phase some of the items that can be used in that phase, but they're also linked. So if I go here, for instance, in the very top under construction, you see immediately which parts are inherit basically from this part. We can go here, for instance, to the wall construction, and you see here, okay, already some parameters and things like that that will be used in the first approximate planning phase. But then if you go, for instance, to the actual concrete wall, here this symbol signifies that this is actually a composite. You see, okay, this is could be an IFC entity, IFC wall. It has these parameters that are important to know for the whole composite. So the parts of the geometry here are needed, obviously, in order also to know how much it will cost to build that for the different parts. But then it's actually also split up in all of these standard items. So all the gray ones, which means that they can or have to be part of this composite. And you see, these are already with the color code classified. It's either a inventory, so something like the formwork here for the concrete wall. You see then this actually might not have a direct IFC entity. I know there are possibilities to model this in IFC, but still it might be that this is nothing that has directly to do with it. But you see other parameters that are needed and so on. You see here, for instance, the how is that in English? The Bewährungsstahl. That was the stabilization steel.
Reinforcement bar.
Reinforcement, yeah. So you see here, for instance, some of the parameters are necessary and some are optionally to be specified. So that's something that's really important to model also in this catalog, in this data model, which parts are more important to have it specified, or which parts are optional. Yes, and there also might be services here. For instance, here afterwards you do something with the surface of the wall, stuff like that. That can be all modeled now within this within this data model. So that's just a very first impression that you see a little bit how that it's not only PowerPoint slides, but we think a lot about how we need to model this actually in the flesh. Yeah, so I think that's all for this part here. So maybe let's switch back to Alexandra's screen.
Yeah, we'll do. Just moving back to Alexandra's screen.
For a little bit another question about this viewer, whether it helps so present information in a comprehensible way, whether it's German, but I hope you understand it a little bit, not at all to the left and absolutely to the right, and the same for what it adds value for you as a user. Thanks. I think there's another question then. Are we through with that? Yeah. Yeah, and now a little bit maybe, I don't know whether it's controversial. And so we saw that not all of you are from Switzerland, but still, do you think this the construction industry benefits from a complementary CRB data model that can be used in conjunction with other standards like IFC? So you already answered, I guess. Good. Okay. Yeah, so that's a good sign. Thanks. There's now some others, but okay. Then we are through with the presentation part, and now we would like to get back to maybe some of the questions you had.
Yes, let's do that. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Alexandra. Really interesting, well presented presentation. Nice use of the interactive function as well. So that's it's always good when you use these this automation and it actually works. So that was great. Thank you. Let me bring CRB colleagues who are in the backstage area into the conversation for the Q&A. So if people want to turn their cameras on, I will add you to the stream. I think Michelle is there, Tanya, Roman, and Dan, and Marcel. So, and Elvis as well. Welcome. Thank you. We had a number of questions and comments that came in during the presentation. Some are specific to do with the data model that you showed us. Hadi has asked this question. I'll put it up on the screen. In order to do the cost estimate, the objects are recognized automatically from a predefined library with their costs, etc., or should you assign them manually? And perhaps that is similar to this one that was raised through me. How will the data model be used? Will suppliers generate catalogs by using it? I don't know who wants to have a go at answering that one.
I think I can take that one. So the idea is, of course, to automate as much as possible. And but in the end, we also don't want to have all the information, or it's not likely that all the information is already in the CID model or in the IFC model. So some information might need to get added later on. So as much as possible, of course, we want to automate, but it's unrealistic, I think, that everything is automatically here.
Okay, thank you, Alexandra. And in terms of if users want to use the data model and use it for their own company's products, do they do that themselves? Will it be something that you can have access to and then set up your own catalog, or would you need help and assistance from yourselves or CRB to set up a catalog? How does it work if you want to go ahead and use it, as it were?
Maybe I can give an answer. That's a different project. It goes together with the first question. So, of course, the data model will support to specify, and the experts in a building construction project will still have to specify, of course. So that cannot, yeah, okay. Perhaps there will be in future options to automate it a little bit. But at the end of the day, it will be experts that have to specify. And the other project that we could present another time is then, if you have the specifications, of course, you can search for products and material in suppliers' product databases that fit to your specification. You can choose them. That's another project we are going on, because there is the option that suppliers can do this with serving one API that we provide, and do not have to provide their data in the data model structure we provide. But that is then probably also the part that was not that good understood in the presentation. It is the benefit concerning specifications, really from generic specifications to concrete products and materials, choosing them, ordering them, to the whole logistics afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Michel. But it certainly sounds like that's on the development. It's perhaps a sister project or another phase that will be looked at, or is being looked at, and will be developed. We also had this question, it's quite a specific question that came in from Rita. Thank you, Rita. I think this came in when you were showing the stage in the use of the data model where the quantities changed in the
slide 24 or page 24, Alexandra.
Yes, I will just go there.
Maybe you could just explain that bit again, Alexandra.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So here, for example, you see the quantity changes. Yes, and the idea is that in this first phase, the approximate cost estimate, you actually have only a volumetric model. You don't have all the rooms specified and planned, and this is going to change. And we also want to capture that change, because this also amounts to some of the price difference in the end. It's not just that the cost rate was different, but that also the quantity of the walls is maybe different.
Okay. So it's a little bit the estimates versus the realized value, or at least the value that you have if you have more information. So I mean, that's one of the main maybe one of the main motivations for this whole data model, that you will now be able to figure out how these parts developed over the different phases of the project.
Understand. So if your specification changes, or indeed you get more up-to-date information that leads to a change, then you can have a re-estimate. Yeah, very good.
Basically, you see how well your estimation was, and for the next project, you can it will help you make a better estimate.
Lovely, thank you. We just have a couple of more questions that were raised through me. This might be one for you again, Michel, possibly, but let me put this one up on the screen. This was more to do with, like, how will things be developed, I guess, beyond the Swiss/German market.
Well, yes, give an answer. It is, of course, a difficult one. So we develop it in first priority for the Swiss market, because that's our task. It's our also our heartbeat. But of course, we see that there is a development on, let's say, less local standardization, less local norms, and also the market goes global. So therefore, we expect it could be of interest for other markets. And we also try to make this happen via buildingSMART and International, but on the other hand, also via ICIS. Well, probably an organization is that most do not know. That's the International Construction Information Society. So these are our peers internationally, so the local standardization bodies. that we say, well, all what we do for the future should be harmonized from beginning. So therefore, potentially yes, but it is something we take if it develops in this direction and it's not a specific target that we have.
Understand. Thank you. That's really, really clear. And I think finally, this was the point that you were making offline, Michelle. I don't know if you just want to say something about what's coming on Thursday in this in a sister presentation from the product room.
It's only because it was mentioned by Sandra or by Philipp, not 100% sure, that there is linked also to these reference numbers concerning costs, and the mentioned database will be shown at first in the presentation. So that gives them perhaps a little bit an idea how it works together.
Okay, that's great. So if people want to hear more, they can join you again and your team on Thursday. We have had one further comment from Hadi. Hadi is asking, based on your experience, how well could you save time by using the data model, considering the complexities of the catalogue and the fact that for different projects you may need new catalogues or adjustments? Anyone have a view on that?
Maybe I can give, or I can give you an answer to this question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm at CRB the guy from infrastructure, and in Switzerland we have the situation that 26 cantons and 26 different road curbs. This is a fact, and this fact will maybe be in further future for more than 50 years or even more, because any canton has his standards. And if we provide a data model and any canton can adapt this model for her local catalogs, so I can save as a planner or as a contractor time, because I have also the same data model, but I can choose now the specific catalog from any canton where I have my project. This is at the moment not possible, but with the data model in Switzerland, this will be a fact, and this will save time for me as a planner or even as a contractor.
Understand. Thank you, Marcel.
Perhaps John, I can add.
Yeah, please do.
We are very used in Switzerland to work in the international environment. So what Marcel mentioned, 26 cantons with different ideas, up to 4 languages. So we think that specifically a data model like this and actual technology, of course, will help to solve a lot of these issues. That technically you can manage this, but you need to do a lot of work up front to set it up in a proper data model.
Yeah. Once you set it up once, you can use it many times. That's really that's a good way to look at it. Thank you. Okay, that is the last of the comments or questions that have come in.
There was one by Randolph Muse. I didn't understand, but
no, I didn't understand that one. So I was
okay,
not going to raise it, but
yeah,
thank you
sorry.
anyway.
So I guess
okay.
it was during the question. So
yeah, it was quite early on actually.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randolph. Just to say thank you very much to Philipp and Alexandra from D1 for presenting today. Thank you to Michel and his colleagues from CRB for the data model and allowing it to be presented, and for coming to answer the questions and comments that were raised. We look forward to seeing the people who have attended today at other events in this week at the BSI Summit. Notably, as Michelle pointed out, on Thursday we have another product room session where we will look into some of the aspects of what was discussed today. So thanks very much. I'm going to close this broadcast now. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.